Alright, we're going to be going over how to get started in Game Maker here. So the first thing you want to do, you want to go to New. And you get all these options here. You just go with blank game. It's usually your best bet. You set your location, so let's just call this tutorial. And let's go. It's going to put us into our workspace here. So there's a lot of folders and stuff. Some stuff you need to go over. The main folders we're going to be working with are objects. Right here, rooms, and sprites. So if you open room, this is your actual like in-game environment. So this is where like your player and stuff are going to be. And your workspace here is basically where you're going to be able to manage all your code. So to get started here, we're going to need obviously a player object if it's going to be a game. So we're going to go create object. And let's just call this, player obj. And then to go with this player, we're obviously going to need some art. So we're going to go into sprites, and we're going to create sprite, and we're going to call this player SPR. Now, first thing we're going to do, obviously, it does have its own image editor, so you can go in here and you can draw whatever. But you can also import if you have some already existing art from another game. So I'm going to do that. Perfect. So you import your art here. We've got our character, and now you're going to go back into your object, and it says no sprite right here. So you're going to drag and drop, and then now the sprite is assigned to your player. And now you have events here. There's a lot of different stuff here, like key press, key down. The first thing we're going to do is step. And we're going to do code. Now, step is basically like your draw function in P5. And then create would be your setup function. So very similar, just different names. And then there's also, you might see a draw function. That is, you don't need one. It's nice though if you want to do sprite animations later down the line. But I wouldn't recommend having one until you've got your animations done, as it might lag out your game. So first thing we're going to do now that we have our player object, we're going to go into our room here, and you can drag and drop your player in. So here we've got our player in the environment here. So if we were to press play up in the top left, you'll be able to see our player here in the open space. In the room here, we've also got some settings, so like width and height. So we're gonna say, let's go 480 would be good, because our player is 48 pixels wide, I believe. Yes, he is. So this would be 10 blocks if we were going to do that. Of course, if it depends on your character size. Now, obviously, there's more than 10 blocks here, which means we need to tweak some of our room settings right here in our grid settings. You do grid X and grid Y. So obviously, we're going to want to go not 58. We want 48 by 48 to be our grid. So now we have our player. He is a little taller than a cube, and now we have our 10 wide. But that's a little too small, so let's up that up. Let's say 640 by 320. Or let's go 480. So there we go. This is just a little example environment. So obviously this is just basically just a picture. Right now we don't have any controls. And then obviously there's no tiles. So what I like to do is set up a tile map. So that's what the tile sets section here is for. So if you don't have one, it's the same thing as sprites. You're going to need a sprite so you can make one. Or if you have one, you can import it. So let's go create a tile set. Let's call it tiles. And obviously it needs a sprite. So let's go into our sprites, if I can find it right here, and let's create a tiles SPR. So you go ahead and import your tile map, like I will do right here, And one thing to note with your tile map, this top left corner will always be blank. It looks like this because I'm importing it from another game. But we're going to go into our tiles back up here, and we're going to assign the sprite like so. Now, of course, it's a little too big. Okay, so there we go. We've got our tile map in there now. We just have to find the right settings, and obviously this depends on your art and stuff like that. So it's good to make sure that it's all set up and stuff like that. But anyways, we have our tile map now, which is good. So if we go into our room and we create a tile layer, so it's tiles_1 is the default name. That's fine. And then it says no tile set. So we can go and assign a tile set like so. And now we have our tiles. And our background is just black right now. You can import an image if you'd like to, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to say let's make it like a nice, let's go like a purple. There we go, that looks good. And then we're going to go back into our tiles here, and we're going to draw out some art. So let's say do a little platform like this. Like this. And that's the nice thing about using a tile set, because you don't have to import each of the sections as their own image. You can kind of just select from this map, and it'll make it a lot simpler and a lot easier when you're doing more complex level design. So that's always good. And that should be good enough for now. I'm no artist, but good for testing. Obviously, you always want like a little testing level to make sure your code's working. So anyways, we have this environment here. But of course, we can't really play around with it. So let's go get some movement in for our character. Now, there is a lot of things like P5, you can do it just through if statements. But for the sake of simplicity, I like to do some key downs. So let's see, usually in games, you use WASD. So we'll go to letters, and we'll go A, and we're going to get this A, and then we're going to go to D. So we get some side-to-side movement in here. So in our create, this is where we define all our variables here. We're going to do some. So let's get X speed in here. You don't have to do let statements. You can just type them. So let's get Y speed. And that should be a good start for us. Now we'll go into our A. So A are obviously moving left. So you're going to want to set your X speed to -5 if you win keys down. And then X speed equals 5. Now we should have some simple movement. So if I'm to go in here, I press D, it doesn't work. Why? Because we haven't done anything. Our X speed is just a variable. So we need to go into step. And what we do, we go X, which is already its own variable in the game, equals, or plus equals X speed. And Y plus equals Y speed. And now you'll see if we go into the game, we'll move. But of course, we just keep moving. To stop this, we're going to get an if statement in here. We're going to go, let's say, if keyboard check. So keyboard check, you see, you can check if a key is held down or not. So let's go, we're going to use keyboard check. And then, of course, you're going to put in your key. So you can't just put in A. You have to put in ORD and then A. So this just kind of helps the game read the letter better. So it doesn't read it as a letter, it reads it as the key in this situation. But obviously we need to see if it's not down. So this is if key A is not down, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to copy paste our code here for D. We're going to close off our bracket like so. We're going to get some curly brackets, and we're going to say X speed equals 0. So what this does, if we're not pressing our keys, it's going to stop us from moving. So now once we go back into the game here, you're going to see that we can move side to side, and when we let go of our keys, our character stops moving, which is perfect. Now the only thing, we need to get some gravity in here as well. So what we're going to do is get to our next big piece of code here. So gravity is a big part of any platformer game, and we are going to need to set up some stuff before we can start going. So the first thing we're going to do is define our ground, or our tile map. So we're going to go ground map, and we're going to call it layer tile map get ID. And now here we're going to put the name of our tile maps. In this case, it's tiles_1 on the layer. So now we can use ground map to kind of refer to this, so we don't have to type it out every time for the sake of simplicity. So now what we're going to do for our gravity, and we should put a comma in so it says gravity, so we know, later down the line, we're going to go if, and now this is the biggest part of our platform game, is place meeting. This is GameMaker's built-in collision string or variable. So basically, we need to check if the X or the Y, and we're going to do +1, so it's a little buffer so it doesn't look like you're stuck inside the platforms. And we're going to need the ground map is what we're checking it against. So basically, it's going to check if the players X and Y, you don't really need, X doesn't really do anything in this case because we're only changing the Y stuff, but it has to be in it. It's a required variable for this. But we're checking if the player's Y is touching the ground map. And in this case, we're checking if it's not, as we have the exclamation point out front. But anyways, and then when we are not on the ground, we are going to increase the Y speed by 0.5 every run. So we get that acceleration from gravity. And as you can see, we will start falling. Now, of course, I still fell through the platform because we do not set our Y speed to 0 when we touch the platform. So we're going to need to go to our Y collision. So, our Y collision. We'll start off right away. So if Y speed is not 0, so if we are moving on the Y, and in any case, we're not on a platform, we are going to need to do some stuff. So, first thing we're going to do is a for loop. So, we're going to do this stuff here. If you remember anything from Game Maker, this is going to look familiar. When you're doing stuff with instances, we're doing a lot of for loops. And basically what this for loop in this scenario does for us, it basically lets us to check every time until we've touched the ground if we're still in the air. So we get like pixel perfect collision, which is really good for like parkour based games. So we're going to obviously need another curly bracket here. I needed one more enter. And then we're going to put our if statement here. So if we are not on the ground, and then we're going to do sine Y speed. So this basically checks if we are moving up or down rather than our actual speed. And obviously the ground map. We're going to add the sine of Y so that we can start to slow down. And if not, we are going to set the speed to 0, and we are going to break our for loop. So now you can see here, let me run it again. You can see we've got some collision. And now the last thing we're going to add here, which of course is another key, is jumping. So we're going to need, obviously, once again, some more variables. And we're going to need one more event, which we're going to go key pressed we're going to go space. I know a lot of platformers use W, but in this case we're going to use space for the sake of simplicity. So let's see. We're going to need a variable called jump. We're going to set the false to start. We're going to need jump v, aka our jump velocity. And okay, that should be a good start for us. So anyways, we're going to go into our space here, and we're going to go the age-old if place meeting x, y plus 1 with our ground map. I'm going to set jump to true. So basically, if we press space and we are on the ground, we are going to jump. Now in our step function, we are going to go down here below our, or we should title this, our y collision. We're going to go down here. We're going to go to jumping. We're going to call this, let's see, so if we are jumping, if we are jumping, our y speed is going to minus our jump velocity. Now, of course, you don't need a jump velocity. You can just put in 3.6 every time, but if you want to tweak it later on, it's easier just to do it with a variable. And then, of course, our jump velocity is going to decrease, let's say 0.6. So basically, over time, we're going to jump higher because obviously it's like a real jump. You start moving super strong and then you kind of go like an arc. Once you reach the top, you start slowing down and you fall. And then, but of course, it's going to do some funky stuff if we don't check when the velocity is 0. So we're going to go if our velocity is less than or equal to 0, because maybe it's an odd number and minus exactly to 0. We are going to go here. We're going to make sure jump is now false, so we stop jumping, and then we're going to reset our jump velocity. So the next time we jump, it'll be back to a normal jump, but it won't be smaller than last time. So let's go into our game here and see what this looks like. So there we go. We've got some simple platformer mechanics in here. We've got moving, we've got a tile map, and we've got jumping with gravity. So there you go.